Chapter 24. Jesus left the temple and was going away when his disciples came to point out to him the buildings of the temple. But he answered them, "You see all these, do you not? Truly I say to you, there will not be left here one stone upon another that will not be thrown down." As he sat on the Mount of Olives, the disciples came to him privately, saying, "Tell us, when will these things be? And what will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age?" And Jesus answered them, "See that no one leads you astray, for many will come in my name, saying, 'I am the Christ,' and they will lead many astray. And you will hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not alarmed, for this must take place, but the end is not yet. For nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there will be famines and earthquakes in various places. All these are but the beginning of the birth pains. Then they will deliver you up to tribulation and put you to death, and you will be hated by all nations for my name's sake. And then many will fall away and betray one another and hate one another. And many false prophets will arise and lead many astray. And because lawlessness will be increased, the love of many will grow cold. But the one who endures to the end will be saved. And this gospel of the kingdom will be proclaimed throughout the whole world as a testimony to all nations, and then the end will come. So when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by the prophet Daniel standing in the holy place, let the reader understand. Then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Let the one who is on the housetop not go down to take what is in his house. And let the one who is in the field not turn back to take his cloak. And alas for women who are pregnant and for those who are nursing infants in those days. Pray that your flight may not be in winter or on a Sabbath. For then there will be great tribulation, such as has not been from the beginning of the world until now, no, and never will be. And if those days had not been cut short, no human being would be saved. But for the sake of the elect, those days will be cut short. Then if anyone says to you, "Look, here is the Christ," or "There he is," do not believe it. For false Christs and false prophets will arise and perform great signs and wonders, so as to lead astray, if possible, even the elect. See, I have told you beforehand. So if they say to you, "Look, he is in the wilderness," do not go out. If they say, "Look, he is in the inner rooms," do not believe it. For as the lightning comes from the east and shines as far as the west, so will be the coming of the Son of Man. Wherever the corpse is, there the vultures will gather. Immediately after the tribulation of those days, the sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light, and the stars will fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens will be shaken. Then will appear in heaven the sign of the Son of Man, and then all the tribes of the earth will mourn, and they will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. And he will send out his angels with a loud trumpet call, and they will gather his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. From the fig tree learn its lesson. As soon as its branch becomes tender and puts out its leaves, you know that summer is near. So also when you see all these things, you know that he is near, at the very gates. Truly, I say to you, this generation will not pass away until all these things take place. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will not pass away. But concerning that day and hour, no one knows, not even the angels of heaven, nor the Son, but the Father only. For as were the days of Noah, so will be the coming of the Son of Man. For as in those days before the flood they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, until the day when Noah entered the ark, and they were unaware until the flood came and swept them all away, so will be the coming of the Son of Man. Then 2 men will be in the field, one will be taken and one left. 2 women will be grinding at the mill, one will be taken and one left. Therefore stay awake, for you do not know on what day your Lord is coming. But know this, that if the master of the house had known in what part of the night the thief was coming, he would have stayed awake, and would not have let his house be broken into. Therefore you also must be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an hour you do not expect. Who then is the faithful and wise servant whom his master has set over his household, to give them their food at the proper time? Blessed is that servant whom his master will find so doing when he comes. Truly, I say to you, he will set him over all his possessions. But if that wicked servant says to himself, My master is delayed, and begins to beat his fellow servants, and eats and drinks with drunkards, the master of that servant will come on a day when he does not expect him, and at an hour he does not know, and will cut him in pieces and put him with the hypocrites. In that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth.
Matthew 24. All that we have been reading, from Matthew 21 verse 23, had taken place in the temple precincts. Now, Matthew 24 verse 1, Jesus departed, and the disciples desired to call his attention to some of its splendid buildings, only to draw from him the prediction that it was to be razed to its foundations. This started their inquiries as to the time of the fulfillment of his saying, which they connected with the end of the age. The first words of his reply show that his predictions are to forewarn and forearm us, and not merely to minister to our curiosity, or even our thirst for accurate knowledge. We are to take heed to ourselves. False Christs are foretold together with wars and rumors, but these things do not indicate the end. There are to be famines, pestilences, earthquakes, as well as wars, but these are only the beginning of sorrows. Coupled with these things there shall be the persecution and martyrdom of disciples, the apostasy of some who have professed discipleship, the rising up of false prophets, the abounding of iniquity, and backsliding in heart of many professors. In an hour like that the real ones will be marked by endurance to the end, when salvation will reach them. Moreover, all the time God will maintain his own witness among all the nations, and when this is completed the end shall come. 3 times in these verses does the Lord speak of the end, and in each case he refers to the end of the age, as to which the disciples had inquired. To his true disciples, marked by endurance, the end will bring salvation. He emphasizes this first, before saying that it will bring judgment for his foes. Let it be noted that it is this gospel of the kingdom which must be fully preached before the end comes, that is, the gospel which the Lord himself had preached. See Matthew 4 verse 23, Matthew 9 verse 35, announcing the kingdom as at their doors. The gospel which we preach today, see 1 Corinthians 15 verses 1 to 14, could not in the nature of things be declared before Christ had died. At the time of the end the abomination of desolation, spoken of in Daniel 12 verse 11, is to be found in the holy place, and Jerusalem is in question, as verse 16 shows. Evidently there again will be a temple with its holy place at the time of the end, to be desecrated by this supremely abominable idolatry. At this time will be fulfilled the prophecy of Matthew 12 verses 43 to 45, the evil spirit of idolatry will enter into the people with sevenfold force, and the mass of them will accept this abomination standing in the holy place, most probably the image of the beast, spoken of in Revelation 13 verses 14 to 15. Because of this crowning iniquity desolation will fall upon them in the government of God. Now the setting up of this abomination is to be the signal to the godly that the predicted great tribulation is begun, and that their safety lies in flight from Jerusalem and Judea, where the furnace of affliction will be at its hottest. The Lord was speaking to his disciples, who at that moment were just godly Israelites surrounding their Messiah on earth, though presently they were to be built into the foundation of the church that was to be. Hence at that moment they represented, not the church, but the godly remnant of Israel, still carefully observing the law of the Sabbath, verse 20, and many of them located in Judea. Instant flight was to be their course. This agrees with what is set forth symbolically in Revelation 12 verse 6. The Great Tribulation is wholly unprecedented and never to be equaled, let alone surpassed. This the Lord states in verse 21, and the reason of it is, that as the book of Revelation shows, it will be a time of infliction of wrath from heaven, the outpouring of the vials of judgment. It will not be merely a case of men afflicting men, or a nation scourging other nations, as we see so strikingly today, but of God scourging the nations as he settles his accounts with them. Wrath from God is revealed from heaven, Romans 1 verse 18, though not yet executed, and as far as the nations are concerned it will fall at this time. Nations as such are only found in this world, they do not exist beyond the grave, though the men composing them do. There will be elect souls on earth during the tribulation, and for their sake it will be cut short, as verse 22 tells us, as it says in Romans 9 verse 28. The Lord will make a short work upon the earth, and this in order that a remnant may be saved. Today God is dispensing mercy through the gospel, and he has made a very lengthy work of it, extending to 19 centuries. When he dispenses wrath, he will make swift work, cutting it short in righteousness. A brief 3.5 years will cover it, as other scriptures show. Thus the goodness of God will be manifested both in mercy and in wrath. At that time the devil will know very well that the coming of Christ is about to take place, hence he will aim at confusing the issue by raising up impostors and endowing them with supernatural powers, hoping to deceive the elect who are looking for him. Verse 24 plainly indicates that not all miraculous signs are of God. There are two kinds, the divine and the devilish. In the divine kind there is a manifestation of the divine character in grace and power. The devilish kind may often be more flashy and startling and attractive to unconverted men. People today, who have an itching desire for the miraculous, should have great care lest they be deceived. The coming of the true Christ of God will be marked by the greatest possible publicity, like the lightning. No one will need to penetrate to a remote desert or a secret chamber in order to see him. Just as the vultures are found wherever the carcass is, so will he fall in judgment wherever men are found rotting in the putridity and pestilence of sin. The tribulation will be followed by the breaking up and the overturning of existing powers both in heaven and on earth, and then the Son of Man will be manifested in his glory. Twice previously the Lord had spoken of the sign of the prophet Jonas, Matthew 12 verses 39 to 40, Matthew 16 verse 4, which was the Son of Man 3 days in the grave. Here, we have the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, the sign that at last God is about to assert his rights in this rebellious earth, and enforce them by the man of his purpose and choice. Two great signs are these. Who shall say which of them is greater? Both are equally great in their season, and command our worshipful adoration. Having appeared in his glory, he will gather together his elect, those for whose sake the tribulation days have been shortened. This gathering will be accomplished by angelic ministration and signalized by the great sound of a trumpet. It will be the fulfillment of the Feast of Trumpets, Leviticus 23, 24, 25, just as the Passover has been fulfilled in the death of Christ, and Pentecost in the gift of the Spirit and formation of the Church. This gathering of the elect is in view of millennial blessedness. There is no mention of any rapture to heaven, or even of resurrection, for it is the gathering together of living people on earth. In chapter 16 the Lord had revealed that he was going to build his church, but its heavenly calling and destiny had not been revealed, so the church must not be read into verse 31. With verse 32 we commence a series of parables and parabolic sayings. The fig tree is a parable of the Jew, and when we see a reviving of national life with that people we are to know that summertime is at hand, but until all things are fulfilled and that moment comes this generation shall not pass away. The Lord has spoken a number of times of this generation, see Matthew 11 verse 16, Matthew 12 verses 39 and 45, Matthew 16 verse 4. It is a very ancient and persistent generation, for Moses denounced it in Deuteronomy 32 verse 5 and 20, children in whom is no faith. The unbelieving generation will meet its doom when Jesus comes, but not before. They will go, and the words of Christ will abide. The exact time of his advent is a secret known only to the Father, who has reserved all times and seasons under his own authority, see Acts 1 verse 7, and because this is so it will come as a complete surprise to the heedless world. It will be just as in the days of Noah, men engrossed in their pleasures till the judgment falls upon them. Then an eternal separation for both men and women will take place. Zephaniah 3 verses 11 to 13 will be fulfilled, the transgressors will be taken away in judgment. The afflicted and poor people who trust in the name of the Lord will be left for millennial blessings, and these are the remnant of Israel. Arrived at verse 42, we again see how the Lord brought these prophetic realities to bear upon the conduct of his disciples. Since they did not know the hour, they were to be marked by watchfulness and faithful service. The servant to whom rule is entrusted must fulfill his responsibility. Doing so, he will be blessed and rewarded. On the other hand, it is possible for men to take the place of servants and yet be evil. Such will ignore their responsibilities and maltreat their fellow servants, saying in their hearts, "My Lord delays his coming." That is always the thought of the world. They listen to the prophecy and then say, "The vision that he sees is for many days to come, and he prophesies of the times that are far off." Ezekiel 12 verse 27. The true servant maintains himself in readiness for his Lord's approach and diligently cares for his interests while he waits. Verses 50 to 51 show that the evil servant contemplated is not a man grievously failing and yet true at bottom, but a man who is entirely false. His Lord will judge him and appoint him his portion with the hypocrites because he is a hypocrite. He is banished under judgment to his own company. When the hypocrite is unmasked and judged, there is weeping and gnashing of teeth indeed.